Hi, everyone. This is Kathryn Adams.
And Elizabeth Wallace, and you're listening to Binary System Podcast number 3. And tonight we're going to be recapping Welcome to Night Vale episodes 70A and 70B. We're going to listen to both episodes, and we encourage you to do that as well, because when we come back, we're going to spoil the hell out of them. See you in more than a few minutes. Oh my god! All right. I am like, that was a mental, emotional roller coaster on that one.
It really was. And now, we talked about this at the last episode. We were wondering exactly how Cecil's move to the desert otherworld was going to go wrong. Or we wanted to know what was going to happen, and I thought it was going to go horribly wrong. I didn't foresee any of that.
No, not the first part, not the second part, not the big reveals. I'm pleasantly surprised because the one bit of information, actually both bits of information they gave us, I hadn't guessed that at all.
No.
Yeah. So we'll start out with a little bit of news from Night Vale. They reminded us about the Europe tour, so that's going on. That's a big thing that's going to be happening. And they also wanted to sort of thank everybody. This is the end of their 3rd year of the
Unbelievable.
show.
Just amazing. For a free podcast, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's episode 70A and B, and it was released on June 15th, 2015. The very first episode, pilot, was released June 15th, 2012. So they timed that out pretty perfectly.
They would have had to have finagled it a little bit because... yeah, they've had lots of hiatus episodes and bonus episodes and various things going on. So, they had to figure that one a little bit.
Yeah, that was nicely done.
But I think let's see. Speaking of hiatus, they're going to be having another hiatus in July, which means they're also going to have content.
Yeah, because hiatus doesn't throw nearly the fear into us as it does for other people, because we're like, you guys are bad at hiatuses, so we know we'll still get stuff.
Great. But my very favorite news from them is that Welcome to Night Vale is going to be at the San Diego Comic-Con this year.
Yay! I'm really curious. I want to know, I think it was last year they did the episode that was a tie-in with them and the Thrilling Adventure Hour. And they also had like booth signings. I mean, we walked past the autograph line at one point for the Night Vale people. And it just, you probably have to wait in that for at least a few hours to get in.
Now, do you suppose all of their stuff is going to be inside the Comic-Con itself? Or will they be like Nerd HQ, that they'll have something outside for people who didn't manage to get tickets to Comic-Con?
I kind of want to say that the Night Vale show that they did with the Thrilling Adventure Hour was outside. I think most of the after hours stuff kind of has to be outside because the convention hall closes and everybody goes and does other things. So if they're doing a show, I don't think you would have to have a ticket to get to it, but don't hold me on that.
Yeah, well, it kind of reminds me of when the Doctor Who fan orchestra contacted you to try to do something at Comic-Con, and they eventually had to cancel that because you can't guarantee that enough people who are participating in that would also have a ticket to Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, no, the logistical nightmare I can't even imagine. So, but yeah, they wanted to have like Doctor Who fan orchestra members walk into the Doctor Who panel playing their instruments, and it would have been glorious. But how can you possibly arrange that?
No, I don't think so. But. So anyway, the episode begins, the first episode, because there were 2 this time, episode 70A, Taking Off.
Yes.
And it started out with Kevin.
Oh, we both looked at each other. It's Kevin, oh my God.
The inaugural broadcast of the new radio station at the Desert Otherworld. And he announced it, and their theme music was...
It sounded almost like a train in a tunnel.
Do you suppose that was...
That was part of it, but then there was like real echoey laughter in the background.
Do you suppose that was the roller coaster?
Oh, it could have been.
That makes sense, actually, because Kevin talked about the roller coaster and how it's got a huge, huge hill and a drop off and a bunch of turns and places where it goes through fire. And,
it turns you upside down several times per second. Oh, God.
And, of course, it's still the same people who got on it months ago because they haven't been able to figure out how to stop it, even though they turned the power off.
Yeah. It's they sounded like, what did he say? The people on there sounded like they were stuck in an interminable cycle of fun. Because as far as Kevin's concerned, being trapped on a horrific roller coaster for over a month at a time would be really fun.
Well, that actually ties in a little bit to what Kevin talked about later in the episode, that he likes telling people about really horrible things happening, like an infestation of fatal throat spiders that happened when he was in Desert Bluffs.
Horrible
it's just the idea that you could just like turn around and see spiders pouring out of the jagged ledge that used to be somebody's bottom teeth.
Yeah, it was a really horrific story, and he loved telling it.
Yeah, he did, because he says it prepares you to enjoy the times when things aren't horrible. So that does seem to sum up Kevin right there.
Yeah, but he was talking to Carlos on the phone, and Carlos is very excited because he is coming close to a scientific breakthrough that I think he's been working all year to figure some of this stuff out. And one of the things he's trying to figure out is the cell phones, and how there's always a signal even though there's no tower, and they never run out of battery. And so he's getting really close to it. And he's got Alicia and Doug, two of the people from the Masked Army, are in his house. But in the middle of the conversation, they get agitated and run out. The Masked Army that kind of centers around our former Night Villains, this masked army will run out and attack other masked armies all the time, even though the other masked armies aren't always attacking. So over the course of the episode, he just got more and more concerned because they don't take any time to rest. They can't seem to stop themselves from running off to war.
Yeah, and all of this is upsetting stuff in the lab, of course. And Kevin keeps prompting Carlos to tell him what the big scientific breakthrough is. I mean, he's just like, your friends are, getting really badly hurt. Tell me about the scientific breakthrough. And I think Carlos starts getting more and more, I can't. I've got this is going on. I mean, he's obviously starting to sense something, finally.
Yes. And the only thing that distracts Kevin from that is, Carlos at one point is talking about how, I can't, this place is a mess. Everybody came back and everybody's wounded and there's blood and severed limbs everywhere. I don't know how I'm going to begin cleaning all this up. Kevin makes this noise and Carlos is like, what? And Kevin's like, nothing. I just really like your story.
It's just like he would.
Yeah, he really, really would. But then as Carlos goes off to try and maybe tidy up the lab and hopefully help his friends, Kevin sends us off to the weather. And it was Pyramid by Jason Webley. And we're all familiar with Jason Webley. He's done a bunch of weathers, and he did the live show that I went to see here in San Diego.
I thought the beginning of this one it reminded me for some reason of the opening of that other weather song, Bremen by Pigpen Theater. And I really liked it. It was very folksy in a minor tone, just very haunting melody. I liked it very much. Yeah, and had, okay, help me out here. Was that in the bridge? Was that a violin or a viola?
I don't know. It sounded a little low for a violin. So
yeah, it's kind of what I was like. I hate that. I mean, you'd think I'd be able to tell, but no.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can. I mean, I was watching an episode of The Originals, the spinoff of Vampire Diaries, and there's a woman playing at one point. I'm just watching going, oh, she's really not playing that instrument. And then someone comes over and says, your technique is amazing. And I'm like, no, it's not. She's not playing that instrument. That instrument is not playing that instrument. I'm pretty sure that's a cello, but no, I think I've talked to musician friends of mine, like, people who play the drums, and they're like, the sounds that you're hearing are not actually coming out of the guy who's playing right now. I mean, it's not even close to the same rhythm. So,
and I'm sure the movie or the TV producers aren't aiming that at an audience of people who play those instruments. No, they're just aiming it at an audience of people who don't, and can't tell the difference.
You said at one point that it's easier to find an actor who can fake a little bit of violin playing than it is to find a really good violinist who might also be a good actor. And I'm like,
I'm sure that's, maybe... God, I think actors used to have to learn everything. I mean, dancing and singing and playing a musical instrument and all this stuff. Maybe not all of them so much anymore.
No, and that's fine.
That's fine.
If you stuck me in front of a crowd of people, I'm not sure I'd be a believable actor. But
stuck me in front of a crowd of people. Most of the time, I'm not a very good violinist either. So
that's very, very true. We get back from the weather, and Carlos has actually come to the station. He's not talking over the phone anymore. And I can't believe all this time that he's been telling Cecil how Kevin's just really nice and really great and really awesome. Well, he's never seen Kevin's preferred way of decorating.
Yeah, because I think it was the Masked Army only recently helped Kevin, quote, quote, decorate his office.
Yeah. And at least it seems like they were decorating it with like lizards and birds and beaks and bones and everything. I don't think it was people this time, but I'm not 100% on that.
Only because there probably isn't a whole lot of people in the desert otherworld to decorate with. And who knows, maybe the Masked Army wouldn't have done that for Kevin. We don't actually know.
No, we really, really don't. But yeah, so you hear Carlos at one point, what is that all over? Is that barbecue sauce? He's just really appalled. But he's got a piece of paper in his hand, and Kevin's pushing him for the results again. And Carlos tells him, I don't have anything. Like Alicia's dog apparently broke into the lab and just trashed everything, just ran through, broke the computer in half. He said, I lost everything.
Yeah, all of his manuals, all of his lab manuals had already been destroyed by the Masked Army coming in and bleeding all of everything. So, and now his computer is completely trashed. He's got nothing. The whole year's worth of work. And he sounded to me like Cecil did when Cecil made that beautiful painting that ended up getting destroyed in that episode. I mean, you could tell he was obviously heartbroken. And we talked about that in that episode with the painting getting destroyed. I mean, there are people out there who can really sympathize. I mean, you put that much effort into something, and the idea of starting entirely over is just heartbreaking. But that's what Carlos is going to do. He's going to start over, no distractions.
Yeah, he's going to do it right this time. And Kevin's like, well, you didn't lose everything. You got that piece of paper. And he's like, oh, this is a letter to a friend. And we're just like, oh no, God. And it's a letter about regrets and mistakes, and that you thought that someone made you happy, but maybe you were never happy to begin with. And Kathryn and I are just like, oh no, what? But then he says that, Kevin points out, well, we don't have a post office system. He's like, no, I'm delivering this by hand, and I'm heading back to Night Vale one final time. We're just, at this point, we're just like, what the hell is going on? I don't like any of this. None of this is good. And Kevin just kind of wishes him the best, and Carlos leaves. And what was the saying that Kevin said?
Kevin said, yeah, well, the best laid plans of mice and men are completely different kinds of plans altogether.
It's kind of a T-shirt moment right there,
I think so. I think so.
It's very good. Yeah.
But, Kevin started out the show by saying that they really need to come up with a name for the desert otherworld, because names are important.
Were you kind of thinking that they were going to throw it out to the listeners? Like, come up with a name for the desert otherworld, come up with a name? I was thinking it was leading up to, like, all of the Night Vale fans submitting their ideas for the names, but that wasn't what it was.
No, I thought Kevin was going to come up with something horrifying, and you know what? He didn't disappoint, because he made his decision what he was going to call the place. He's going to call the place Desert Bluffs.
Oh, and then the usual Desert Bluffs radio music jingle comes on, and Kathryn are just like, ah! Oh my God. It was surprisingly horrific. You're just like, he said, a name is a name and a place, and he's going to start, and this is his home, and that was the name of his home, and this is his new home, and it's just, that he's going to turn it into another real desert.
Well, if you read some of the comments on Podbay with the commenters, who are just amazing, but there is some theories bouncing around about time and the fact that maybe the desert otherworld is Night Vale, like way in the past, like millions of years in the past. But now, maybe the desert otherworld is Desert Bluffs, millions of years in the past. Maybe Desert Bluffs and Night Vale are actually one and the same somehow. We don't know.
Oh, God, yeah. You could speculate on that one forever.
You really could, but he's really cheery. And then he notices, Carlos left the letter behind. Well, he's not going to read it. Well, no, he's absolutely not going to read it. So he signs us off, for the desert otherworlds. Good night, everybody. And there's a pause. And then you hear paper rustling.
Yeah. And he opens it. And he's like, oh no, this is sad. I don't like this. And then it signs off. And Kathryn and I are like, did he leave it on purpose? Did he leave it on accident?
Was that actually supposed to be for Kevin?
We don't know. They left it pretty ambiguous, that we were hoping. We were just like, I hope he left it on purpose. So Kathryn and I considered at that point like recording a little recap of 70A and then listening to 70B and then doing the recap then. But we were like, no, I want to listen to the episode right. Yeah. So we went straight into listening to episode 70B, which is called Review.
And Cecil is talking about, well, he was getting ready to say goodbye, but first he wanted to talk about the opera, because last night was apparently the inaugural performance of it's the new old Night Vale, right?
Yes, I think it's the new old Night Vale Opera House.
Yeah. So, and he was really shocked when he went to the new old Night Vale Opera House, because of course neither he nor anyone at Night Vale knows what opera is or what an opera house was supposed to be. He thought it was going to look like a petting zoo, but it didn't at all.
Which in Night Vale, a petting zoo is what? Lots of stalls filled with dirty straw and drugged wolves. And I'm like, every time I hear about this petting zoo, I really don't like it. It makes me feel bad for those wolves.
Yeah, the only time the Night Vale petting zoo wolves had it made was after that episode with all the rabbits. And the only thing they could do to get rid of the rabbits was give them to the petting zoo.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. So he gets there, and it's nothing like that. Everybody's all dressed up, and they're wearing tuxes, and they look fancy with their balaclavas and shin guards, and he's wearing his sponge clogs that matched his tights perfectly. And I'm like, that's that taunting the cosplayers again. We dare you.
Yeah, that and the honeycomb, the hat made out of honeycomb. Go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Have fun. We will take your picture. But then, I was thinking, okay, so maybe opera, aside from some weird things with the clothing, maybe opera in Night Vale is similar to opera in the rest of the planet? No.
Sort of? I don't know, because other than the fact that the curtain's only raised a few feet high, so you can basically only see everybody's legs.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and, there's a lot of audience participation, and it's non-linear, and there's people shouting at the stage and performers shouting at the audience.
And Cecil shouted something, and he ended up being handcuffed to his chair.
He thought it was really fun. He thought it was really, really great. And then at one point, I remember the curtain raised all the way to show the set, and it sounded like a really gorgeous set, like this old ship perched on the top of a monstrous wave, and the detail of this set design was really staggeringly beautiful. And then the person running the curtain realized they shouldn't have done that, and they drop it back down to a couple feet above. So I'm like, okay, we got to see something.
But I think suddenly Frank Chen showed up on stage. Yes. Normal Frank Chen of normal size with a normal number of human heads. And he's on the stage, and he's like growling and hissing. And then Cecil hears somebody beside him, and it's the faceless old woman saying, I guess you won't be able to help Dana now that you're handcuffed to the chair. I'm like, oh no.
So I'm trying to remember the order of things. So you've got Frank Chen preparing for his aria, and then in a dramatic moment, he rips off his bow tie and reveals himself to be Hiram McDaniels.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
Oh my God, holy cow. That was his clever disguise.
Yeah, but Hiram was hissing at Dana and like spitting flames and everything, except for the purple head.
Yep,
was looking
purple head was not.
Right at Cecil.
Yeah. And Cecil actually felt something kind of familiar, but he wasn't sure, and he actually pulled his hand against the handcuff, but nothing could happen. And he said for once he wanted to help Dana, but he knew even though this was the one time when he really wanted to help, he wasn't going to be able to. And she wasn't looking at him. She was looking straight at Frank Chen. And
Hiram McDaniels.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I got confused. That disguise was so good. But Hiram McDaniels gathers himself up in this dramatic leap towards Dana, and the purple head is twisting itself back as if just the movement of its own neck could force the rest of its body back. And then everything goes black.
And Cecil hears this whiny voice in his head, and it's apologizing to Cecil for buying lot 37. And Elizabeth and I are both jumping up and down. The purple head is the owner of lot 37.
Out of all the things that I was thinking of that could be the owner of lot 37, I think we agreed that we were pretty sure it wasn't Dana, but I never really got a good idea of who I thought it might be, and I am totally fine with this.
I really am too. I was not prepared for that at all. I love being surprised by that kind of a story twist.
Cecil was saying, do you know what it's like to have your body out of your control, to have part of your life out of anything that you can do anything about? And the purple head's like, yes, I only have 1/5 control of my own body. He's been fighting against the rest of the heads. I don't even know for how long.
Because he wants to settle down. He thinks Night Vale is a really nice place, and he'd like to stop all of these plotting, all this stuff and the illegal things and having to run all the time, and he just wants to settle down. So at the auction, he bought lot 37 while the rest of his heads were distracted by lot 38, which was a normal human disguise.
Yeah. I loved how he had introduced himself. When he introduced himself to Cecil, he said, most people call me Purplehead, but I prefer Violet. I'm like, oh. We both at the same time. We're like,
they've done that before. They've actually had the Purplehead say, why does everyone call me Purple? My name is Violet. But that might have been I think that was at the debate. So, and they haven't really brought that up too many other times, but it was just,
it was really cute.
Oh, I've always thought the Purplehead was just so hapless. But
yeah. And the Purplehead was really trying its best. And Cecil said, well, you got to fight your own battles. And the Purplehead said, I will. And I'm sorry. And I give you back lot 37, Cecil. Lot 37 is now yours to do with whatever you want.
And Cecil had been very angry at Violet for the fact that this ruined his relationship with Dana. He's been mistrusting Dana the whole time. And after Violet gives Cecil back possession of lot 37, he tells him, but I'm not to blame for ruining your friendship with Dana. You were the one who didn't trust her.
Yeah.
Because he really didn't have, other than the fact that it was Dana's life being saved, Cecil didn't have any other proof of who was doing it, but he just automatically assumed it had to be Dana.
Yeah. And so I think he takes responsibility for that. He realizes
he does. And he's very sorry now that he just, he missed the opera, he missed the after party, and he missed saving Dana. And, it's all.
And he missed his friend, too. I like how he was just like, he was talking about how he walked out in the rain and saw reflections shimmering in the puddles, and he doesn't like reflections that shimmer. And he said, I miss my mother. And same word, different meaning, I miss the opera and the after party. And same word, both meanings, I miss Dana, And it was just, it was cute. It was neat.
Oh, but we went to the opera. Excuse me. I was about to say we went to the opera, but that's not true. We went to the weather.
We did go to the weather, and it is A Line by Abby Wolf. I thought it was all right.
Yeah, it was almost an 80s feel, that really harsh drum beat sound to it.
Yeah, and a little bit the thing they were doing with the voice, I don't know that it's necessarily auto-tuning, but where the voice has some very distinctive computerized changes in it. I'm not always a huge fan of that. It was all right. It was fun. It was good.
I like that. Well, we come back from the weather, and of course, Cecil's clothes are soaked. His shoes are now 5 times their regular size, which, sponge shoes, of course.
Yes, that would definitely happen. But a car comes by him, and he hears a voice, Cecil, get in. And he said, like those people in Night Vale, when a voice in an unmarked car tells you to get in, you get in. So he gets in. But I guess it's maybe it's a TARDIS. It's definitely bigger on the inside.
It's huge on the inside. Yeah. There's a party going on. It's all the opera supporters, and there's waiters with hors d'oeuvres, and everybody's having a great time. Josie's there. All of the Ericas are there. And had we known that Cecil's sister's name is Abby?
I don't know. I thought the exact same thing, though. I feel like we got that information at some point, but when I heard it, I was like, Abby, okay, good, So it's Abby's sister who's married to Steve Carlsberg, and their daughter Janice was there, and Janice fills us in on everything we missed when Cecil was out.
And it was that she thought the opera was fantastic, and she loved the bit where the 5-headed dragon goes on the attack, but then the purple head starts biting all the other heads, and then the whole dragon ends up having to fly out of the building. And
I think a faceless old woman was seen running out of the building, and she thought it was the most amazing thing ever. And why are you moving? Are you gonna come visit me? Or are you gonna come to my birthday party? Uncle Carlos says you don't have to move if you don't want to move. And he's like, well, Carlos, when did he say that? And she's like, well, he's right over there. he's at the party. Carlos is at the party.
Yay! And of course, there's a wonderful reunion, and Carlos tells Cecil that Night Vale is Cecil's home. And you know what? Night Vale is Carlos's home, too.
Yeah, and he had to give Kevin a letter saying that he was leaving the Desert Otherworld and he wasn't coming back.
Yes. I wonder was it just that last day of having to deal with the masked army and his lab getting destroyed? And then, because he'd written the letter before he saw how Kevin had decorated up the lab.
I know, right? Yeah, I guess, I don't know, maybe certain things were just appearing to him. Maybe it was just in that awful moment of losing a year's worth of work. You sort of wonder, was this what I should have been doing for the past year? If I have to start over, is this where I'm going to start over? But yeah, the rest of the whole episode was really just Cecil kind of a reaffirmation, He's just really dedicating himself. He says that his final show for the Night Vale Radio is a review of an opera, but not this opera. So, someday that'll be his last one.
And there's been a lot of talk in the last episodes about how Cecil's tired of Night Vale and that it's not worth all of this trouble, but he basically says Cecil will make Night Vale worth it. So, and he's obviously he's apologized to Dana. It turned out Dana and her assistant were the ones who handcuffed him to the chair.
Yes, because they knew that this wasn't a fight that he really wanted to be a part of, and they wanted to keep him safe, and they didn't know who was controlling him either.
No, so. And Dana wanted to fight her own battles, which is basically what Cecil's been telling her to do this entire time. So, yay, Dana!
Yay. So he apologized to her, and she did finally smile at him, so I think they're okay. And Hiram McDaniels, actual real five-headed dragon, he's in jail, except for the purple head.
Yep, because Violet has now been given a little hole in the side of the jail, so he can stick his head outside the jail, because he's not actually under arrest.
He's not under arrest. And after that, Cecil signed off, and it was awesome, because he finished his last remarks, and he's like, and as always, good night, Night Vale, good night. And Kathryn and I were just cheering, yay!
I knew something was going to happen to keep him from having to move and not do the broadcast anymore, but I didn't realize it was going to be for a happy reason. So I've been waiting for Carlos to come back to Night Vale since the Old Oak Doors episode a year ago.
Yeah, and it's when he was saying, I've spent a year here, I was counting back. I'm like, holy crap, it really was a year. Be darned. So all's well that ends well. So that's very, and They did throw me for a loop in episode 70A, though. I mean, they really, obviously by the end of the episode, when Kevin reads the letter, we're like, oh, well, maybe it's not what we thought. But man, for a second there, it really seemed like that letter was for Cecil.
And what was the proverb? You really liked the proverb at the end of one of these. I think it might have been the end of 70A.
It was the end of 70. You're right. It was the end of 70A. It was a rose by any other name is called something else. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, the proverb at the end of 70B was, I say potato, you say potato. Potato, potato, potato. And then it just goes on for a really long time. She's like, this is good. Let's keep doing this.
Potato. I think I actually saw that on Tumblr and thought that someone had made up something, but I hadn't realized they were quoting from the proverb.
Well, no fan art this week. We're going to cut this off so we don't actually go over the length of one of the episodes.
If at all possible, yeah. So that's a lot of content at once. I mean, these guys never save themselves any trouble. I mean, even if they're out touring, even if they say they're taking a hiatus, they're still putting out content and releasing a book later this year. And
and going to Comic-Con.
Yay! So cannot wait for Comic-Con. If you guys are going to Comic-Con and you're going to be wearing Night Vale costumes, please look us up. We will be, one of us will be dressed as steampunk and the other will be dressed as cyberpunk. We'll probably be fairly easy to see, I imagine.
Yeah, at least together. I mean, there'll be a lot of steampunk people and a lot of cyberpunk people there, but probably not traveling together. So we'll have an episode at the beginning of July, and that'll probably be a hiatus episode. So we'll have bonus content, and then after that, we're going to have Comic-Con. So that'll be awesome.
And who knows what kind of content they're going to be providing for us at Comic-Con. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll find out. So other than that, we will talk to you guys in a couple weeks.
Talk to y'all later.